Good afternoon and a warm welcome to this ICAS webinar today. My name is Judith Wilson and I have the pleasure of being your host. I think we're going to get rid of these. Yeah, thank you very much, Flo. Our event this afternoon will last 1 hour and we're going to cover information on how to prepare for the fair and other careers events. Thank you for coming along today. We know it's a busy time of year. Whether you're in your final or penultimate year, the assignments and study expectations are building up. Added to that, there's jobs and careers fairs being advertised and deadlines are looming. So there's a lot to think about. This session is to help you focus on how to make the best of those careers events. It's not rocket science, but if you plan and have a few strategies and questions up your sleeve, then approaching employers and events should be straightforward and productive. Before we begin, we've just got a few housekeeping matters to remind you of. You can submit questions at any time in the Q&A facility, which can be accessed at the top of your screen, and questions can be submitted anonymously. We'll be saving all those questions to the end of the webinar for the live Q&A section. You can also join the conversation through the chat box, accessed again at the top of your screen, and that allows you to comment or discuss things with your fellow attendees. We will be recording this webinar and make it available on demand afterwards if you want to refer back to it or share it with others. And everyone on the webinar is automatically muted, so you don't need to worry about any background noise wherever you are. So we look forward to getting your questions throughout the course of the webinar, and we'll try to answer as many as possible. Starting with me then, I'm Judith Wilson. I'm the University Engagement Manager here at ICAS. It's been a while since I graduated from Aberdeen University with a degree in German Studies. My current job involves representing ICAS on campus and at careers fairs, skills days and information sessions. I've presented and attended careers fairs on behalf of different organisations and employers throughout my career, so I have quite a lot of experience of student engagement at these events. And I'm really pleased to bring on our panel today Molly Cohen, Alison Richards and Ben Sutherland, who should be appearing on screen now. Welcome. Do you want to introduce yourselves? With Molly, Alison, Ben in that order. Is that all right? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Judith. So my name's Molly Cohen. I'm a subject manager here at ICAS. I started my journey, I did accountancy and finance at the University of Glasgow. When I was in my third year, I got an internship with EY, and I was lucky enough to get a graduate role in audit with them. So I did my ICA training with EY in Glasgow before moving on to a smaller firm still in audit, and then moving on to ICAS as well.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Thanks, I'll go next then. So my name's Alison Richards. I moved to Glasgow over 10 years ago now to study at the University of Strathclyde. I didn't study accounting and finance. I did joint honours in economics and marketing, but then managed to fall into accounting. I did a couple of internships between my third and fourth year at university at PwC and EY, and then went on to have a grad job with PwC working in audit. So whilst I was there, I did my CA training with ICAS, and then I stayed on at PwC for a little bit of time, working on audits in Glasgow, Edinburgh, and I also did a secondment to Melbourne, which was a really great experience. And then I've joined ICAS last January as a subject manager. So I look after the audit and assurance subjects, so assurance at the knowledge level, advanced assurance at the skills level, and sustainability for accountants, which is an elective course as well.
Thank you very much.
Afternoon, everybody. My name is Ben Sutherland. I'm a director in our Edinburgh office of MHA. I'm in our audit, accountants and business advisory department. Similar to Judith, it's been a while since I graduated. Graduated in 2012 from Heriot Watt, and then took on a role at MHA graduate role at MHA in the audit department, qualifying in 2016, and I've been there ever since. I mainly look after a portfolio of owner-managed businesses, looking after all their accountancy and tax needs, and lots of experience at attending careers fairs, both as a graduate and also as an employer. So I've got both perspectives there.
Fabulous. That's great. That's a great start. Just Alison and Molly, what experience have you got of careers fairs? Just out of interest. What are your credentials for being on this webinar?
Yes, so I attended lots as a student. I think they're always great.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll go into more than that. And I also attended when I was at Ernst & Young from that side as well, but careers fairs as well as insight evenings.
Insight evenings, great. And Alison, as a non-accountancy graduate, what about your experience?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I attended sort of more business school wide careers fairs, I would say, because at that point I wasn't sure that I wanted to go down the accountancy line of things. So that gave a bit of a broader perspective. You were able to speak to people with different job opportunities as well, but sometimes that can be a little bit overwhelming. And then I've got a bit of experience at the other side as well. When I was at PwC, I attended a few careers fairs back at Strathclyde as well, actually, from that employer perspective. So seen it from a couple of different lenses too.
Fantastic, thank you. And so first of all, I thought it might be good for us to cover the different types of events that students might be considering going to. I don't know, Ben, what kind of events do MHA attend or put on for students?
We largely focus on sort of in-person career events, so university events, and also we do take on some people directly from school and the school leaver route. So we do also attend careers fairs at some local schools in Edinburgh. We have done some sort of insight evenings in the past. We don't tend to do too many at the moment, but we do like that sort of face-to-face interaction from the careers fairs perspective at universities. We do find a benefit from that, and obviously we do attend the ICAS online careers fair each year, which also has its benefits, slightly different perspective, but you do get focused time there with individuals, which is quite useful.
Yeah, and I suppose the big fairs that maybe we're all going on at the moment, and Molly, I think you were on recently. What are they like? They're everybody, aren't they? They're the one that you were at recently. What would you go along to for that? You've got all the different employers.
I think those ones are great because, especially if you're a first or a second year, you're going along and you might not know exactly what you want to do. You might do a completely unrelated degree to accountancy and then just happen to start speaking to someone at a stand and think, oh, do you know what, that's really interesting. So I think those fairs where it's everyone and maybe not as focused on the business school are great because you get a huge depth of candidate, and equally you don't need to have done a business related degree to become an accountant. Yeah. And I think that's it all, doesn't it? Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, just to follow on to Molly there, it still seems to be quite an expectation that you need an accountancy and finance degree to go into accountancy, where actually almost all, certainly of the larger employers, are focused on all degree disciplines, because everybody has a different perspective. An English literature graduate looks at things completely different to a master and accountancy graduate, and both have their benefits in the world of accountancy. So those all business events are actually quite good because you do get to see a bit of all types of industries and different roles that are out there, not just specific to your degree.
Absolutely. And actually over 60% of our intake are non-accountancy graduates. So that's quite useful for folk to think about, that it's actually there's no really wrong path for coming into it. And I suppose you get a wide range of employers at those events, and you can and spend a lot of time talking to quite a variety of different options, can't you? What's the downfall of going to an event like that, an enormous event as a candidate? I'm thinking downfall is there's a lot of employers, there's a lot of things, and it's difficult to be focused. Do you sometimes find that people come across as unfocused at those events?
To a degree, you obviously need to do a bit of planning before you attend, but you quite often you don't want to spread yourself too thin. You sort of got to have to go with some ideas to what you might want to, who you might want to speak to, what industries you might want to look at. But do maybe if it is just you've never looked at accountancy and you do want to just come and have a chat with somebody who's focusing on a couple that you've maybe looked at before. But it can be difficult. You can't speak to everybody. You've got limited time, and you want to make the most of your time there.
Yeah,
I would say as well, it's useful to have had a little bit of a look into some of the companies that you know are going to be attending. I don't think that you need to be an expert. You don't need to be like quoting like stats from the random report at them or know the whole like purpose statement or anything of the company, but just so, as Ben says, you come across as a wee bit informed and to give yourself like a bit of direction. If there's these fairs in like massive rooms and you're not sure what stalls and things you want to go on, it's good to have that wee bit of direction, I think, when you're coming in.
Absolutely.
Were you going to say something, Molly?
Oh no, just following on. I think my camera's frozen there, but I'll try to fix that one. Yeah, no, following on, I think it's really important, as Alison and Ben have said, just to have that bit of focus about who you want to speak to and focus your time. Obviously, I was at a fair a couple of weeks ago, and some students would come up and they wouldn't know who ICAS was, which is totally fine. We're more than happy to speak about who we are and, what we are here there for. But some would come up and straight off the bat say, I want an internship, without understanding who we are actually, if we offered that or not. So I think in those situations, it's really good to have understood exactly who you're going to speak to, and what you're trying to get out of the fair as well.
Fantastic, yeah. And I suppose in some ways those are the big fairs, because there's so many people. In some ways it's you are the one that has to be focused, whereas
Yes.
at a business school fair or a finance or an accountancy fair, everybody's going to be, quite obviously, if you're interested in accountancy, have what you want. So actually, you could spend a lot of time with the A's and B's and miss out on, I don't know, MHA because it's M and you started at the beginning of the alphabet. So that business about doing a bit of research, I think, is really important, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah, because it might be that actually the people there aren't offering what you want. It might be that they're only advertising jobs in ABAS and audit, for example, and you want to specialize in tax. So you just, by doing a little bit of research, you can then again focus your time a bit more into something that you actually want to do. And just going back, so it is good to come and approach the stands, even if it's you don't know anything about them, but even just a very quick Google on your phone before you turn up. It's not the best. First question is, so what do you do? And then you explain it, and then you just immediately walk off. It's not the best thing, but yeah, doing a bit of research into what they're offering as roles, and if it's internships or graduate roles, so that actually it's something that you might be interested in taking forward.
Absolutely. And so for an online event, I think my colleague has put the link to signing up to the careers fair in the chat just there. For an online event, that's slightly different. How do students prepare for that, and how do they engage with that? How would you expect that to work, Ben?
So the online event, certainly the ICAS event, so a lot more personal. It's your booking time with employers. So certainly be prepared in advance of that. You have booked a specific time. So look up the firm, look at their LinkedIn posts. Are they a sort of firm that you want to work with? Are they offering the roles that you're looking to get in the right service lines that you're interested about? And asking the sort of coming prepared with a list of questions that aren't just generic questions. They're actually something that you want to find out specifically about that firm, work-life balance, all that type of stuff. It has just been much more prepared on the specific firms that you've booked in with, and making sure you turn up as well. Yeah.
And I suppose in some ways, because it's a virtual environment, you can do the research really easily, because often the stands will have all the links to the websites, the jobs that are on offer. You don't have to be a mastermind and do it all, but you do have to read what's there and not ask questions of things that might already be there. The other thing you can do is upload a CV. And that is sometimes, I think, quite helpful for employers, and sometimes employers will reach out to you, I think, won't they?
Definitely.
A virtual environment.
As I said, the virtual ones, they are an opportunity for you to get a bit more personal time there. And a careers fair, you are just walking up. An in-person careers fair, you tend to just be walking up. It's down to the employer to then take down who's come to speak to them. Whereas in the online events, you can get that information up front or before the booking, so you can look people up beforehand, and then also easily follow up with them if you think they came across quite well and you want to get them, make sure they can follow through with the application process.
Absolutely. And what about these employer insight evenings? Molly, I think you said you'd been to one. What's that?
Yes. So I went to a couple when I was a student, and then equally on the other side with my employer. And it was an evening where one was audit focused when I was a student, and the other one was kind of a graduate focus in general. So you could go meet people from the different service lines, so people actually doing your job, as well as recruitment. There might be a presentation about the business and, you know, some general key facts, and it was kind of a networking opportunity, which was great from a student perspective to go and say, what do you actually do in your day-to-day role? And equally at those face-to-face events, you're going to get a vibe for, oh, do you know what, I could really see myself working here. I like the people I've spoke to, I could see us, you know, working really well together, and equally just finding a bit more about the different service lines. You know, you might go with, I'm going to work in audit, and then leave thinking, oh, do you know what, actually tax sounds a lot more interesting. So yeah, just a really good opportunity to go and see exactly what you want to do.
Absolutely. And are they generally held in employers' in offices? So you would be in the environment where you might be working?
One I attended was in the office, so that was great to see. I'd never been in, you know, an accountancy office before, so it was great to see exactly what that was like. And another one was at an external venue. It was a much bigger event though, so it was probably best suited to that.
A bit mix. And Ben, I think you mentioned from the employer's point of view, you've run these before. What do you want from students coming along to those sorts of events?
Yeah, so I mean, they're very similar to the sort of online events where it's much more personal. There's less people there. Certainly if they're a more sort of office-based event, obviously the office, it just depends on the capacity of the office and how many you can take, but quite often they're a lot more personal. So it has been specifically prepared about the business. Even quite often they'll release the colleagues from who's actually attending, so you can look them up on LinkedIn as well. So you have something to conversationally to speak to them about. It's not just questions you could ask them. Well, so you see you've got an interest in paddle, that sort of stuff. It just makes it much more conversational, because these things can seem a bit intimidating in that front, because you are a bit one-to-one with people in that case, certainly from a graduate perspective. So planning ahead again and doing a bit of research, definitely beneficial for those. And yeah, as Molly said, if it's in the office, you get to see the environment. It's not just the online environment, it's the in-person environment, actually, where you may be working in the future, and seeing if that's something that's suitable for you.
Yeah. I mean, it does sound a wee bit intimidating. I mean, is there any tools for navigating, you know, for plucking up the courage to do these things? Has anyone got any recommendations?
I think it's just remembering, sorry, Molly. I think it's just remembering that everybody's been in your shoes as well. You know, like you might think, oh my goodness, these folk have been working for so long at this firm, but at some point they were also a graduate, not knowing what their first job would be. So I think that remembering that everyone has a lot of compassion for you in your position, they're not expecting you to be an expert, you know, so as long as you turn up like your best foot forward, you know, you be polite, you're enthusiastic, and you make that first attempt at the conversation, that other person will help you along as well when you're at these sort of networking opportunities too. So I guess just remembering that everybody else has been in your shoes, and hopefully that'll give you a wee bit of confidence as well.
That's good advice.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I'm in a slightly different position because I was on an accountancy degree, and everybody was looking at the same opportunities that were available in events. So you could always go with a couple of people that are going as well. Equally, you're not turning up yourself. If that helps just with the nerves a bit.
Very good. So moving on to sort of practical tips, we've sort of touched on them a little bit. Preparation for going to an event. What would be a good way to start? I think we've talked a little bit about the different types of events. So I think researching the purpose of the event, researching who's going to be there, a little bit about what kind of organisations, who you actually really want to talk to. But people talk about preparing your pitch and an elevator pitch. That sounds quite big deal. What does that need to be? Alison, have you got any ideas on?
Yeah, so like you say, that's one of those phrases that's thrown around a lot that sounds a little bit like corporate jargon. But what we really mean by an elevator pitch is just having something prepared so that when you go up to an employer, you have something to say. So you want to convey who you are, what you're studying, and maybe what kind of jobs you're looking for, and try to finish with a question to open up the discussion, rather than finishing with a statement, which leaves it quite sort of closed. So if it was you, Judith, and you were looking to, you're speaking to Ben at a fair and you're wanting to look for a job at MHA, you might want to say, look, hello, I'm Judith Wilson. I'm studying German, I think you said your degree was. I'm graduating next year in 2026. I'm interested in sort of traineeships in chartered accountancy. I've looked up MHA, it looks like a good place to work, but would you be able to let me know if there are any jobs coming up next year? Do you offer internships or traineeships? And then from that point onwards, the person knows a wee bit about you. It opens up the conversation. There are a few things you can go off, but you're not needing to prepare a whole page of information that you're going to regale the person with. You just want to keep it quite short and snappy, but it just stops you from turning up at a stand or going in to speak to somebody and not knowing where to start almost.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great, isn't it? It's just a strategy. How would you respond to that, Ben? Would you give me a job?
Well, it's all about first impressions, and if Alison came up and said that, then it's a great first impression. It is good to come across as confident. Not everybody is confident, but being prepared with what you want to say up front, you come across as being a bit more confident, and it then eases you into a conversation. Whereas if it's not something you're used to doing with people that you don't know, then it is a really good way to get that introduction and get that conversation started. It doesn't need to be, it's pretty much exactly as Alison said, it doesn't need to be too long, just a bit of background as to what you're studying, what your interests are, and maybe a bit of what you want to do in the future and what your plans are. But yeah, it's all about first impressions, and that's what Alison's just done there. It would be ideal if somebody came and said that.
Great. And I suppose it's open, isn't it? It gives you the opportunity to talk about something, but I've broken the ice and I've given you something about myself without, taking up half an hour of your time telling you about my dissertation, sort of thing. Which I'm sure is very interesting. You can do obviously on your second thing.
And I think that's the thing as well. You want to be quite respectful of the people's time when you're at these fairs. There are a lot of people also wanting to try and speak to these employers. So you don't want to be seen as totally hogging an employer's time, sticking with them for 20 minutes. That's not giving the best impression either. You want to put yourself across as well as you can. Give a good confident impression of yourself, but not sort of monopolize the employer's time either.
Yeah, so I think a good follow-up on that is you do like to attend these things in groups, or people do attend these things in groups, but if you go up to stand in a group, it doesn't give you that opportunity to give that first impression, to give that elevator pitch, as it's called. So yeah, it might be good to turn up together, but it is your career, it is your future, so maybe spend that time on an individual basis going around and speaking to who you want to speak to, so you can get that first impression across, because it can go quite a long way if you do come across well.
You're right, actually, because I was at a fair yesterday, and when there was a group of 4 people coming up, I didn't know who to look at from the point of view of who was actually interested in it. And you're right, it helps. It certainly helps the employer focus a little bit more on who's actually, yeah, who's actually interested as opposed to who's sort of just buddying you along.
Yeah.
Totally. And what about the type of questions that you would expect students to ask? I mean, if they're interested in sort of the job, they might want to ask about. I suppose they might want to ask about the different specialities we've been talking about. Might there be something about the training vacancy, how, or the training program, how that works? Are there questions around that would be good?
Yeah, so it's based on the individual and what they want to get out of that conversation. But yeah, I mean, you want to obviously find out what it is you're offering, what service lines are you offering those roles in, and at what level. You want to find out about the culture of the office. So what do they do socially? What's their environmental and sustainability and inclusion policies, and how does that actually work in the office? Work-life balance, how many people are going to be at the same level as you, and what's the sort of training prospects and progression prospects there. So I mean, it could be a wide range of things, but it's really finding out what your initial few years going to be like, and how is that training going to be provided, because it's obviously in-person work environment training as well as separate studying, and how that comes across. What's quite good at the in-person careers fair is, depending on the firm, but they quite often seem, or the people attending tend to be, there's some junior members of staff and there's also some more senior members of staff. So if there are junior members of staff that you're speaking to, it's actually asking them, how's your first year or 2 years been? How have you found it? Has it been what you expected? Obviously, they're going to say yes, but it's really pressing those questions with them to actually see how has it been, and is it what you thought it would be? And then the more senior people, it is just thinking, what are the progression opportunities? How can I develop in the future, and what's the plans after the training? It's not just about the right now, my first year's long-term future as well. What are the opportunities?
Yeah. Following on from Ben, there's usually some people from recruitment there as well. So it's a good opportunity to ask, what is the recruitment process? Is there any deadlines that I need to be aware of? Is there any, special qualifications or something that they're looking for in your application? And just making sure that you're making the best use of that time and asking those questions.
Yeah, because I think every organisation has a different process for recruitment, different deadlines, different hoops at different stages, and that's your opportunity to find out how you're going to plan applying to them, and whether you need to manage your time, whether you need to take a day off or something like that. It's a really good opportunity to do that in a really direct way, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think also when you're talking about junior members being there, Ben, they're a really good opportunity to ask them what a day in the life of a trainee looks like, isn't it? I mean, because that's ultimately what you want to be able to see if you can visualize yourself doing.
Yeah. Certainly from somebody who's maybe not got an accountancy and finance degree or background, you might be coming into the industry completely blind, and it's an opportunity then to actually find out what actually do you do. And it is different depending on what service line they are actually working in. So it is trying to work your way around and find somebody in different service lines if you're not sure which way to go around, and find out actually how is it, how is the working environment, how is it different studying wise compared to university or school, and they will have just been starting that process, or maybe by a year or 2 years through it. So they're ones at the sort of coalface there that can give you that. And they, as Molly said, with recruiters being there, or recruitment team being there, if there's junior members of staff, they went through the recruitment process potentially last year. So getting tips off them as to what questions might be asked, or what to do in an assessment centre, what maybe not to do in an assessment centre. They're good questions to sort of follow up with them on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good resource actually. It's great when employers are able to do that. And I think at the webinar or the online careers fair next week, we've got some webinars coming up, and I think MHA are going to do that. And I think each employer will bring different types of people on to talk about those sorts of things. Is that right? Or am I making that up?
Yeah. So it's usually split a more senior member and a junior member as well. The junior member can focus on the training and work-life balance in terms of how do you get that study time in when you are working a full working week each week. So yeah, it's good to get that variety of experience and perspective. I qualified in 2016, so my experience of ICAS is different to what the experience is like now. It was all paper and in person back when I did it. It's completely different now. So you need to speak to people that are going through it at the moment, and they can provide that perspective.
Fantastic. I'm thinking, Alison, about sort of really practical impressions, like body language and stuff like that. Is there anything that you would recommend people?
Yeah, for sure. So I think to begin with, you're not needing to go to these events dressed in your best suit, full business casual, but at the same time you want to make a good impression. So I probably wouldn't also be going in my tatty joggers that I wear to the gym, so you want to be striking a balance in how you're presenting yourself. What I would say as well is if you're approaching a stand, just make sure to make that initial eye contact. You want to engage with the person that you're speaking to make that first impression so that they remember you. I've touched already on not monopolising that person's time, but I would say as well is don't just sort of grab the merchandise that they'll have out. Like, it is great, you usually get a few free pens and things at these events, but I think it's important first to make that connection and ask whatever questions you have rather than just going and grabbing business cards or free pens from stands as well.
Good advice, I think. And I also think from the point of view of the kind of work that you're going to be doing, you're going to be working with clients, that having eye contact, smile, open interest in a person, active listening, you need to demonstrate that from the first time you actually come into contact with your potential future employer.
Absolutely. And I think that's, like a firm's going to be like trusting you with their image as well. So when I first started in audit, within the first couple of months of being there, I was out on client sites, sometimes by myself, and therefore like your firm is trusting you with their brand image. So they want somebody that is going to be able to connect with the clients and give that good impression. So you're totally right. It's not just for that one interaction, but it's like a sample of how you would be like in all of your interactions that you're going to have within that organization and its clients.
Yeah, makes a massive difference, I think. Molly, at your recent event, what questions worked well or landed well with you?
Yes, that's a really good question, Judith. I think maybe not so much question, but I feel like a meaningful conversation really landed well. And, going away from the event, you can remember who made a really good impression, based on what Alison was saying, and also who maybe just taking that time to do a little bit of research and asking us, what is the CA qualification like? Obviously, the questions that I was getting asked are perhaps different questions that Ben would get asked, but it was just really evident who'd taken the time to think, right, this is a question I'm going to ask the ICAS stand, instead of, just a generic question that they could put to everyone, and just spending that little bit of time, I think, really showed.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I would say, even, I don't know about others who've spoken to people recently, somebody came up to me yesterday and said, I'm really scared, I don't know what to ask anyone, I don't know what to do, what should I do? And even somebody being that authentic, and actually, they had actually really good eye contact, they were really personable, but they just were a wee bit intimidated going into the room, because everywhere is different. Often they're not laid out in particular, they're ad hoc environments that have just been thrown up for the day, they're not necessarily that great or intuitive. So I think somebody like that, I had a really good conversation with them afterwards, but they just didn't really know how to start. And but they were honest about it. I think they were pretty honest about it. What about sort of following up or asking to make contact on LinkedIn? Ben, how would you feel if somebody wanted to link up?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite common, and I mean, from an employer's point of view, from the sort of first impression, and as Molly's saying, making a good impression and striking up a good conversation so that it's meaningful and that you do remember that person. Following up with them on LinkedIn also just puts you right there in front of you again. So it then flashes back to you like, oh yeah, I do remember them. And certainly from us, if people have made a good impression when they've come and spoke to us, and then they're actively following up with you, we do note that, and if they then go through the application process, we point them out to the recruitment team and say, if these applications come through, is make sure you review them in time and get them progressed because they made a great first impression. But following up on LinkedIn is also quite good because, well, some in the past have certain follow-up questions, for example, that they forgot to ask that they then come and can ask you, and you do reply as quickly as you can in that case. But it's another way in of getting a bit more conversation with the people that work at the firms you maybe want to apply for. And then you're then also following or connected with somebody at that firm, so you can see what it is they're like and what it is they're posting and commenting, which gives you a bit more of an impression specifically about that firm and what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And so would you suggest they maybe brush up on their LinkedIn profile before they go to the fair? It's worth having one, I suppose, having a profile and also maybe, yeah.
Such a big thing now. I mean, you don't need to be that active on it, but it's a great place for finding out about firms and what they do. You don't need to specifically do anything yourself as long as your profile is up to date. But you get to see what everybody is up to, who's doing what socially. I mean, a lot of these firms' accounts are now just what are the staff up to, and that's about the culture and what is the place going to be like to work for. You won't understand, and maybe potentially a lot of the technical stuff that's put out, but it's the staff side, it's the events they're attending, the events that they're putting on that you will then be involved in if you join, and that gives you a good impression as to what to expect and what it might be like to work there.
I think it's never too early to start building your network on LinkedIn as well. I think that particularly like in the Central Belt, that the accountancy world's quite small. So I actually met Molly when I was doing my internship at EY. And then fast forward a few years, I've ended up working with her at ICAS. So it's amazing the people that, even if you don't end up progressing with a firm just now, you don't know when that connection is going to be useful in the future. So I think that, brushing up your LinkedIn profile and just spending a wee bit of time starting to build that network from now on is a really beneficial thing too.
Fantastic, yeah. And I think, like in the last section, I'd quite like to understand our employers' expectations. We sort of have talked about how to prepare and the different events. What sort of things are we looking at from the point of view of, I mean, we've talked a bit about professional appearance, not getting too het up about it, but I suppose there's behaviours as well. And as Alison says, you don't know when somebody's going to appear again. The behaviours and etc. around also, attending the fair, but also following up and then the application. Are there things? What would you recommend?
It's always just been professional about it.
Yeah.
It's, for example, like a remote fair. If you've booked somebody's time and you don't turn up, it's an immediately bad impression. If you then apply, there's a bit of potential that feedback's made its way through, and obviously it doesn't show somebody in the best light. But it is just coming across in a professional manner, confident as you can be, and taking the opportunity to speak well and take as much information as you can away from the meeting.
Yeah.
I think also just being polite is really important. and showing a genuine interest. And obviously, if you're showing a genuine interest, it'll come across in the questions you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I suppose that's actually listening to what they're saying and following up and not asking a question that they've just told you the answer to.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then how would you say professional appearance sort of professional behaviour sort of applies to the wider application process? You've talked, Ben, about like not showing up for an online discussion, but the application process at MHA is presumably fairly long. The engagement, how do people engage well in that?
So similar to how we spoke, it's showing enthusiasm, being very well prepared throughout the process, doing a lot of research, linking in with people beforehand, and getting as much information you can on the firm that you're applying for. And then it certainly one thing, if you are successful and you accept a role, is following through with that. It's not at the last minute letting them know that you're actually not going to come along a month before you're meant to start, because there's quite a lot of work that goes in the background, certainly from an employer's point of view, in the assessment centres, the interviews, the registration with ICAS, for example, beforehand, and it doesn't show somebody in the best light if they then rescind or withdraw their position just before they're meant to start, and it goes back to that impression. It is a small world in the Central Belt, and you never know down the line what impact that stuff like that could have on a potential opportunity in the future.
Absolutely, and I think people nowadays will ghost employers, and I think that does leave quite a bad taste. And you know, you're at MHA today, but you might be somewhere else tomorrow, and that person might come across your desk in a different way. And so yeah, it's I think people maybe think that it's a confrontation, isn't it? Saying no to someone after you've accepted an offer, and it's something that they want to avoid. But actually, you know, showing that you can have that difficult conversation and being honest about it, I think you'll get more respect for that.
Definitely, it's being honest about it. I mean, there are genuine reasons why somebody may not be able to come along to a job that they've accepted. Might be location, might be they've actually just got an opportunity they really want to take on that didn't present itself initially. So it's being honest and letting employers know as early as you can in that sense, just so they can then prepare and plan accordingly. Stuff does happen, so and we all accept that. But being honest and upfront about it is a good thing to do. Obviously, as you say, Judith, you never know where somebody's going to pop up again down the line as you're just starting out your career. You've got a long career ahead of you, and the Central Belt's quite small, so you may come across people quite often in that time.
Absolutely. I had down something about certificates versus skills. You know, sometimes people come to fairs and events and they've done their accountancy degree, they've got the right internship and all the rest of it. Is that a better application than someone who's, I don't know, done German, and who, I think you were going to give me a job earlier. I think I gave you a really good pitch. I think I'm in there, aren't I? What's your take?
I think it so depends, because it's the soft skills as well that are really important, and certainly like at ICAS, like your professional ethics, your leadership, all of these things are like fundamental as you go through the qualification. So your employer isn't necessarily going to just be looking at somebody that has passed all the right exams. Like your personality, how you're able to interact with people, your ambition, how you want to lead yourself. I think these are all like at least equally as important. Certainly what I've seen, I didn't do accounting and finance at university. I did do a business related degree. But I don't feel that's held me back at all as I've gone in to start my career. You know, it's about having that balance between like the academic side and then also what you're bringing yourself to a role.
Yeah, I mean, my trainees are probably sick of me saying this, but 50% of the job is all about how you can deal with people, and you get that skill in various aspects of life experience. It doesn't come from sitting exams. It comes from work experience, it could be family experience, it could be all these types of things. So it is, for example, somebody could have been almost a part-time, full-time carer for family members, for example, which has limited their ability to have part-time work. But quite often it's left off a CV. It's quite a big thing, that, and it does come with various skills that you will develop doing something like that. So it's making sure you put that sort of stuff on an application and a CV. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing to be able to show that you've had responsibilities in all aspects of life. And people seem to think it's just degree and it is specific employment that you've had in the past. But as long as you can sort of display how those skills that will help you in your application that you've developed, that's just as good as anything else, really.
Absolutely, yeah, because there's a massive time management element to that, and juggling and resilience required
Yeah.
in that kind of experience, isn't it? So that's great to get people to reflect on the experience they do have, and actually and make sure that they flag it in the right place, and not shy away from it.
Shy away from it, yeah.
Shy away from it. So just before we go into questions, common mistakes. Any mistakes? Have we done some of these, haven't we?
Yeah, grabbing the merch and not even saying hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think going straight to asking about money or salary without asking about what the job actually involves would be a common mistake, maybe, that I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, just doing sort of no research and coming up and expecting us just to do a pitch effectively to everybody that turns up. It is a little bit of research goes a long way.
Yeah, and being passive, I think, not being able to sort of start the conversation and not have any question. I think, and I think we also talked about arriving in a big gang and monopolizing people's times, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think that one thing that people shouldn't forget is there's lots of opportunities within their institutions to get with careers teams who'll do mock interviews and also help you prepare for the fair as well, and tell you a bit about employers and different types of profession. So don't not use those sorts of resources that are available to you. Is there one piece of advice that you would each give to someone who was preparing for the fair?
I'll kick us off. So the one thing that actually goes quite a long way is if you do speak to a firm that you get a really good impression from and you really like the sound of working there and you do want to apply, is taking down some personal details potentially of the people that have been at the stand, or something in particular about the firm that has drawn your attention, and using that some way down the line as part of your application process. It might be a specific mention on your application, your CV, or when you get to an interview, it always comes across really well if you can start off by saying, I met Ben at the Heriot Watt Careers Fair, and all this sounded really great. It goes really a long way and shows the recruitment team or the interviewers that you have actually is personal application, and it isn't just I've sent the same thing to everybody and I'm just trying to get a job. It does go quite a long way.
It's a great piece of advice, yeah. Alison?
Yeah, no, that sounds really great from Ben. What I was just going to say was something that we touched on a wee bit earlier, but just remember that it's your career, it's your future. You don't need to follow the crowd. So certainly when I was studying and applying for jobs then, I went down a bit of a different track to like a lot of other people that had done my degree. Or I've seen other people, perhaps you do accounting and finance, but a lot of your friends are applying for audit at the Big Four, and you can't think of anything worse than doing that. Don't just follow the same processes as others thinking that that's right. Whilst you might have had a really good gang at university, it is the stage then that everyone starts going and doing their own thing. So take some time to reflect on what you actually want out of your career and what would be a good place for you to start. And yeah, just remember to prioritise what you're looking for in that.
Good advice.
I would say go with intention and try and have those meaningful conversations, because equally employers are there, looking for candidates, but you're there to get something out of it for yourself as well. So going and knowing exactly who you want to speak to and finding out about the company and, you know, if that's somewhere you want to work, rather than just kind of going blindly and speaking to everyone. Intention.
Yeah, that's really good. I think I know these can be intimidating fairs, I think, but I think it's also worth, maybe when you're in your earlier years, trying it out, going along to a fair when it's not as important as perhaps when you're trying to find a job, so that you do know what the room's like and know what it's like to do sort of pitch to people. And so I think practicing it when it doesn't really matter, I think, is also, as would be the advice I'd give, because I think I'd left it to the point at which it really mattered, and wasn't great. Less said about that, the better.
No, that's really good bit of advice, because it gets people to know earlier on specifically what it is they might want to do, and they can plan their way through university, for example, based on that as well, whether it's making sure you get the right exemptions from your degree, for example, or the certain experience with certain subjects that might be useful in that service line that you might be interested in. So that is a good thing, use them as early as they can and not locked off for just final year graduates, for example.
Exactly. So I'm going to move on to the Q&A. Now, we've had some questions in. Somebody's asking here about the sort of questions that they're likely to be asked themselves at a careers fair. What kind of questions, if you were on a stand, Ben, you might be asking?
So it depends on how their little pitch is going at the start. So if it's, you want to find out sort of what degree it is they're currently studying, and what their interest is in accountancy. What do they want to see as a future career? Do they have a longer term plan? That's also quite good. Yeah, and a bit of like, do they understand how the working and studying might be for them in the future, and if they've got any experience with that today, whether it's part-time work whilst at university, for example.
Sounds good. Anyone else got ideas on what you might be asked as an attendee?
Covered. Main one,
Yeah, very good. There's a question here. I've only got 30 minutes available. Is it worth me coming along to the careers fair on Tuesday? Well, I'll say yes. You're going to have access. You will have access to the stands and the jobs beforehand. You'll have access to the webinars that are taking place afterwards. They'll just be recording, so you wouldn't be able to ask questions as such. But it's definitely, I would say, worth coming along or registering and engaging with it, even if you've only got 30 minutes on that day, because obviously it's a snapshot of time, and people have lectures and other things going on, but there's facility to do that. Yeah,
definitely worthwhile.
A question directly for Ben: when do graduate vacancies open for MHA?
So ours are already live. They went live last month. They tend to fill up quite quickly, so any advice on that would be to apply as early as you can. We do get lots and lots and lots of applicants. They don't necessarily come on a first come, first served basis. We don't have a hard deadline on that anymore, but it's just getting as early as you can. They are open, and we are recruiting now.
So do you have a deadline advertised, but you just fill it as and when? Is that how it works?
We just fill out. We might put an initial deadline up, but we tend to keep it open if we want to. Depends on this. So obviously we have 2 offices in Scotland, Aberdeen and Edinburgh, and we also have 21 offices around the rest of the UK and Ireland. We're all doing the same recruitment drives. In Scotland, we're recruiting for our next year's intake, so September 26 intake. There's about 12 or 13 roles, I think, going in Scotland from a graduate perspective. So it is, they are live and open now. So if you're looking to apply, it is just getting as early as you can.
Yeah, and I suppose if students are used to deadlines being when you hand in your essay and you work right to the deadline to get it perfected, then it is a different mindset. And that is a question that's worth asking people, is what is the way to do it, and that's what you'd find out if you went to a fair, is when do I best apply, and not get disappointed by leaving it till 5 o'clock on the day that was advertised and find out that somebody else has gone for it.
That used to be much more common, used to be a hard deadline, and it was everybody applied, you didn't review anything until that deadline came in, and then you reviewed everything. But with the volume of applicants that you get now, it's easier, you just fill it as you go.
Right. Yeah. And you are talking big volume, aren't you, that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, with thousands and thousands of applicants we get nowadays for graduate roles.
Yeah.
So in Scotland, I think we filled about 13 last year, and we had over 1,000 applicants.
Wow.
So it's quite a lot.
Competitive. Somebody's asked here, is there any tips for someone who doesn't seem to be able to get an interview at the moment?
I would say it's hard to know without knowing sort of how you're preparing or what type of jobs, but make sure that you're tailoring your CV to each job that you're applying for. I think that particularly with what Ben's saying, you know, it's very competitive, and I'm sure that you're probably applying for lots of different jobs, but taking the time to do that tailoring can really help you to stand out a little bit. I think if an employer gets your CV and can see that it's clearly not tailored to that company, or is perhaps being tailored to a different job and then is not applicable, then that's going to be a straight no straight away. So even if it means you have to take a little bit more time on each application, make sure that you are doing that appropriate tailoring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say maybe to make use of the career services available to you, you know, at university as well. They might be able to help you with your CV, or if there's, you know, assessment centre tips and tricks that they've got for you as well, that might just help you to get the interview as well.
Yeah, and one again, making use of LinkedIn, you never know if you could connect with somebody and ask what you might think is a cheeky question as to what should I do for my application. Then you never know, you might get some good hints and tips depending on how many requests like that they are getting. So you never know, you could always chance your luck that way.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think you're all right, and especially if people are beginning to use AI in their application processes. I don't know if MHA have a policy on that, but I think the tendency is to create quite a lot of bland applications that aren't tailored. They're not specific. They haven't mentioned that they met Ben at a careers fair and really enjoyed what he was talking about when he was talking about the bake sale, or it becomes really bland and generic, and actually beware of underselling yourself, and just for the ease of doing 10 applications when you really want to do the one. But yeah, Molly, you're right. There's lots of careers opportunities within the careers departments, and psychometric testing. You can practice on those. We've got something on our website as well for, and you'll often get that within careers departments. So you can just practice and practice and practice, because it's not a black art. It's just practicing it and getting it right.
Yeah.
But good luck to the person who is applying for things at the moment. I think we're all out of time. So I think we're going to put up a poll for folk to rate today's webinar with 5 stars, 1 to 5, and 5 stars being the best. It'd be great if you could fill that in. We're going to follow up with an email talking about our own online careers fair, which is a week today. Take the skills that you've learned today and put them into action at next week's event. But I'd like to finish by thanking our speakers for their time and their insights. It's been really great to get those key bits of information that will hopefully help people as they attend the fairs going forward. And thank you to the audience for coming along. I hope it's been helpful to you, and look forward to seeing you at the fair next Tuesday. Cheerio.